if we need to advertise this, do we? Should I tweet this? I don't know.
Yeah, let's tweet it. Why
All
not?
right.
You guys want to hear about the new iPhones? We've got the new iPhones. There you go. Pretty.
Pretty in pink. It's Molly Ringwald.
Pretty in pink and very scratched up in gold. my poor 6 has seen its fair share of battle scars.
Oh yeah.
I'm like looking at this. Look at these lovely pock marks I've got. And most of this has been in a case for a year. It's gotten so banged up. Oh, that's the worst part.
Oh wow.
It's so dirty. I've been having to Photoshop things out for almost an entire year.
I know.
Devices is so nice.
All right, I'm going to queue up the ads.
All right.
All right, let's get started.
Let's do it.
The iMore Show is brought to you today by SoftLayer, which delivers a cloud built for innovation. Your business applications and computational workloads are unique, so you deserve a cloud resource that meets your specific needs. SoftLayer is an IBM company. In fact, IBM uses SoftLayer as its cloud infrastructure foundation for all IBM cloud products and services. All of our listeners have the opportunity to get $500 off cloud infrastructure by visiting softlayer.com/podcast. Thanks, IBM. It is October 1. Well, so late, 2015. I'm Rene Ritchie, and right now we're going to talk all about the new iPhone's 6S. This is the iMore Show. Joining me, as always, we have the photogenic 4K, Senator Caldwell. How are you, Ren?
Hello. I'm not in 4K right now. I think my eyesight shoots a measly like 2 megapixels, but hello, internet.
But you have the capacity to shoot 4K now, right?
I do. I have the power. In fact, this device has shot way too much 4K today, which hopefully everybody will be seeing tomorrow.
So I realized if I combine my my 6S and my 6 things, I have the United Colors of Apple.
I almost have the United Colors of Apple. Oh, because you have both a 6 and a 6 Plus. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So I've got
Flip them.
I've got the United Colors of Apple if we do one from each generation. Because I've got these 3, but I've got the space gray, but I've got my little tiny 5S. It's so sad and weak.
Yeah, I keep saying the 5S could hollow out a 6 Plus and use it like a tauntaun.
It's pretty insane, honestly. Like you look at that. There's my 5S. Here's the 6S Plus right here.
So the design, I mean, if we go 6S Plus and 6 Plus, the design has not really changed. It is, they are one of a kind. I am okay with that. I don't feel the need to have a radical redesign every year.
Yeah, I will. You know what? I do like the 7000 series aluminum. I feel like it does feel stronger to me. It feels the 6 Plus especially. My boyfriend has a 6 Plus, and the 6S Plus versus the 6 Plus. This definitely feels sturdier in my hand than the 6 Plus did. The 6 Plus felt very much like I was either going to break it or it was going to fly out of my hand like a tiny wispy bird. But I actually, this is the first year where I kind of like the feeling of the 6S Plus, and I feel kind of dirty for saying that. Like I like my little phones, but I've gotten, I have both this guy and the 6S in rose gold, and I found I'm pulling this guy out more often than I'm pulling out the 6S. It feels weird.
Yeah,
feels wrong,
I went through that last year, and I never realized how small the other iPhones were. I mean, I had Android phones and I had Windows phones that were much bigger, but they were so heavy that I kind of dreaded them. Like it always felt like if I dropped the Lumia 1020, it would dent my floor. And these were just so light, it was almost effortless and so thin, and you don't realize that until you're trying to pull it out, put it into a pocket. And I just couldn't stop using the 6 Plus. I'm gonna get 6 Plus and I'm gonna get 6S and 6 confused all day today. Oh, yeah. But I just barely touched it, and I think this year is gonna be the same.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that it helps that Apple's events get released or the new iPhones get released in September, because it's just the start of good coat weather, and with a coat, it's a lot easier for me to justify using a bigger iPhone. In the summer, where I'm just wearing shorts, it's a little bit harder to stick the bigger iPhone into pants pockets. But even so, it's not terrible. It just kind of sticks up halfway. But for that, I kind of like I still like the form factor of the smaller device, but I really like working on the bigger iPhone, especially in lieu of like my iPad mini currently is non-retina. It's a first
Yeah.
gen iPad mini and it is very slow. So being able to use the iPhone 6s Plus with 3D touch, and more specifically to be able to draw on the iPhone 6s Plus, is pretty phenomenal. And it's become a portable sketchbook for me, which is really, really neat. Even the 6s is not bad, but the 6s Plus, when you're drawing on it, is fantastic. Paper on the iPad and the new
Yeah,
Notes
I was
app.
playing around with the Notes app, and it's just
It's
phenomenal.
awesome. And
It's
I'll show off my drawings too.
oh, they're so cool.
We've
The
got
sketches. Yeah.
we've got hello phone. You want to readjust for
White balance.
temperature there? Yeah. So we got that one.
And you're using styluses.
I was. Yeah, there we go. My tiny little yellow-faced creature, cuz unfortunately Notes does not have a color palette.
There's
Unlike,
no Unicode skin tones. No.
well, it kind of bums me out. You know what? Because the Apple Watch has a color picker, right? I can tap and hold on the color picker and the Apple Watch, and I can get any color of the rainbow. I can't do that on the iPhone. I'm limited to the stock like 12 colors that they want. I can get 5 grays, but I can't get skin tone. And I'm like, come on, Apple. You have a color picker. You've built a color picker. It's not that hard.
One
But
of the
yes,
things that we noticed also in New York was that both you and I were using our Apple Watch so much that we didn't really have to take the phones out as much.
hallelujah. I mean, I love using the phones for the purposes that they're built for, right? For in-depth, like I love using it for web browsing and I like using it for sketching, but I especially now that watchOS 2 has made my watch usable again, now that it's not in like crazy untempered beta status, I love being able to dictate to my watch and just do that all the time. Be like, reply, yes, let's do the podcast at 5:30. That's just so good. It's so nice.
Yeah, it's great. So, what you mentioned, the 7000 series aluminum, it does feel tackier. I never had a problem with my iPhone 6. I use it without a case. I almost feel like I can juggle it like Bullseye from the Daredevil cartoons, and let it fly. But I've never, knock wood, I've never had a problem with it. But this one feels even tackier. It feels even easier to grip. And just the internet can stop it. This isn't a reaction to Bendgate. They make these phones starting 2 years ahead of time, and you can see in the Apple Watch that this metal was ready starting last year, just wasn't ready for the
Yeah.
phones yet. So it's designed, this whole thing, and the double ion exchange glass, which isn't new either, but it's new for Apple, and they do 2 levels of ion exchange to make it even stronger. It's all built to just support the people grabbing and pressing on their phones a lot now.
Yeah, it was so funny when you had that initially in the review, and I looked at you and I was like, really? They made it stronger for pressing? That seems so crazy. But yeah, I mean, this is a pretty strong phone. I'm not going to try and bend it because I really like this, but I do feel like this is still for a fairly slippery phone. I mean, it's less slippery than the iPhone 6. But when you compare it to this guy, and I think it's, you know what, it's not the backs that's the problem, it's the sides. It's the fact that with the 5S you have corners to grip on, like hard, rigid corners. And so when you put it in your hand, you're not really touching the back surface. You're kind of putting yourself in the middle here. With this guy, primarily what you're doing is you're putting a index finger on it, like you're physically touching the back of the phone with your hand, which I feel like leads it to be a little slipperier without those hard corners. But it is less slippery than the 6, and I think when you're using the 6s Plus, it doesn't feel slippery at all because you have to grip it so tightly to hold it in the
Well, you learn to manage, like you do the
yeah.
pinky grip here, and then when you want to go, like that lets you get to the corners. When you want to go to the other corners, you just release a little bit, it slides, and then you can hit the top. And you get used to, I mean, it sounds silly, but you're walking around with a coffee and you get used to just holding it, and I can't get this in camera. You get used to holding it and switching your grip, and your body figures it out. Human bodies are amazing at what we can adapt to.
Yeah. Someone's saying my volume's too low. I'm going to turn it up right here. All right. How's that? Gati masala. Hopefully that'll be a little bit better. Yeah, I'm surprised at how easy it was for me to get used to holding the 6S. I will say though, I really like the silicone cases.
Yeah.
These things have just enough like grip and slide that I can I can seriously put 2 fingers on them and they won't move, and it's beautiful. Like it's almost like Georgia has that finger buddy behind
Yes.
stacked to her phone that just attaches to 2 of her fingers. The silicone cases feel like that, but without any weird loop. They feel really, really good in the hand. And I
Yeah, I
mean,
was.
they do cover up the rose gold, which is kind of sad, but I really like the case, like the colorations. They've matched them to the new watch bands. So right now you've got this beautiful like lavender with the little pink hiding out. I'm like, this is actually a really nice color combo. It
I was
doesn't.
using mine without a case in San Francisco, and one of our designer friends just kept saying it's tote snakes. And I figured that's San Francisco slang for no case
Yeah,
anymore.
no case, no case. You know what? I'm conflicted because I really do like the bare look of the 6 and the 6S. But as I was showing you before the show, my 6 has taken a beating because I decided to carry it freeform for a little while. And I broke 2 screens
Yeah.
doing very minimal tasks. Like I had my phone half out of my pocket in my lap, and I went to get out of the car, and it fell, and it shattered the entire screen 3 weeks into owning one. So after years of having caseless iPhones, I have finally come around to, you know what, this phone is so little and so full of glass, even if it is ION-X tempered glass, that I would like to make sure that I don't destroy it.
It's designed for that. Like people keep saying you should make it twice as big or you should make it waterproof, and Apple has made it more water resistant, but they make it to be a very like only the essential parts of it, because they assume if you want protection you'll add a case, if you want battery you'll add a Mophie or something, if you want waterproofing you'll add a life-proof case. But the thing is, you can't take those off when you don't need them. So if you don't need them, you get the nice thin light case. You can read with it in bed without your arm tiring out and it falling and hitting you in the face. And you can put it in the thin hipster jean pockets. You can do all these things, and they don't have to worry about the extra insulation that makes them ramp down the processor, or the extra RF interference that makes them have to amp up the antennas. They can just make the core of the phone, and you can add anything you want to it. And I think when you talk about the silicone or the new leather cases, that works out too. Want more grip? Add a case. Still not a huge phone.
Absolutely. I really do like the ability to just kind of swap on and off cases at will. Will say, sadly, the silicone case, like the one downside to it, the one complaint I have with Apple is because it's silicone and because it grabs your hands so nicely, it also grabs every living piece of dust around. And when you live in a house with 2 dogs and a cat, you get a lot of hair.
Kind of feels like Magneto, like you can just hold it up and turn and stuff just flies and sticks on it.
Pretty much. It's trying to get a photo of this for our heroes for our website was next to impossible. Like, no, dust, go away.
So what you went through this? So we should just back up for a second. We went to New York to get the phones, and for the opening, we have videos up if you want to see the show not the show, but the launch at Fifth Avenue Apple.
It was really fun.
It was fantastic. But then we went around doing photo tests and a bunch of things, and you decided to do how pink is rose gold, or how rose gold is pink.
I did. How pink is the new iPhone? What kind of pink do you see? So we did a dress recap kind of thing where I basically took the pink iPhone. Christina Warren and I had this idea at the same time, and she ended up working with her designer to do this beautiful collage of like various pink items shot in a neutral zone. And that's, I think, a really good way to kind of see how pink it compares. For me, I was kind of like, all right, well, Christina's covered this angle. Let's cover the real world angle that Mashable didn't cover. Let's cover all right, I've taken my brand new pink iPhone. I'm just going to hold it up against pink things in New York City. And we're going to just trust that the lighting, that this is real world lighting. And what we discovered is, the rose gold iPhone really is a multi-chromatic device in that depending on what colors you're holding it up against and what the lighting is like, it looks like a completely different phone. In some lighting, especially in slightly reddish lighting, it looks like the pinkest thing on God's given earth. And then in other places, it looks downright champagne. Like it almost looks like the gold iPhone. And in a couple pictures, I was showing it to friends, and they were like, "Is that the gold iPhone or the pink iPhone?" It's like that damn
dress. It can look silver or gold or copper or pink, and it all depends. And as you turn it in your hand, depending on the sunlight, it'll look all of them at once. It's amazing.
Yeah. So it was a really fun slideshow to do, and I'm glad we got to do it.
I like the color though. I was afraid the color would be almost garish, but it's sort of like what Apple did with the gold phone. The gold phone isn't Kardashian gold; it's like champagne gold, and this is not hot hot pink. This is more of a I don't know what's the right shade for this, but it's a cool metallic.
Yeah, it's almost Christina Warren was calling it rosé, and I tend to agree. It's almost like a copper champagne.
I was calling it pank just because it sounded good.
Pank. Yeah, I mean, if we see even switching it around in lighting in my office, if I tilt it in the shadows, it looks really pink, and then the second I get some light on it, it starts to look much more gold. It really depends on the light you have it in. I think I like this color the more I spend time with it. I was initially very kind of like, I'm not a huge pink person. Like, I got the gold iPhone because I have a team who our secret chant is white gold. So I was like, this is the closest thing to white gold that I'll find. But the more I spend time with the pink iPhone, I really, really do enjoy the color. And God knows the first time I showed it to my boyfriend, he's like, I want that. That is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people assume that it'd be a very gender-specific color, but it has a very widespread appeal. I think Apple is good at finding like that industrial design department is really good at finding shades that have a universal appeal.
Oh, they know. They absolutely know. My next hope is Apple make some shade of blue. I would love like a cerulean iPhone. It'd be so
on
cool.
Twitter is saying purple.
Purple, yeah, I know. I know Peter Cohen is very much on the purple train as well.
I'm sure Sam goes, Apple, make me a purple iPhone. Where is it?
Make it happen. Make it happen now.
Where is my purple iPhone?
Yes, build quality. I guess we should talk about the hidden build quality aspect, which is that unbeknownst to just people in general, Apple has made the devices a little bit more water resistant. Which is not to say you should go taking it into a pool.
No,
but in the as Apple is prone to do, they look at the devices that they're building, and they built the watch to withstand in the shower, and they're like, what lessons can we take from the watch over to the iPhone?
Well, they built the watch to have minimal water resistance that Tim Cook insisted on taking into the shower.
Yeah.
It feels like the same. It feels like they undersell water resistance. And I think that's smart, though, because the minute you say something, people are like, I went snorkeling in the Pacific and now
my iPhone won't work. Yeah, exactly. It's like, maybe you shouldn't bring this in certain circumstances. But I like the fact that they're doing this under the hood, and I like the fact that they're not advertising it, because it means for the people who have oh no moments where like, oh, the iPhone gets water spilled on it, or oh, I'm in a rainstorm and my phone gets soaked because I had like the ports switched up when I was listening to music. This allows them to be a little bit more like safer, basically. It allows them to feel more delight and joy when they discover, oh, I didn't brick my phone because I accidentally dropped it in the toilet.
Yeah, it's the same thing when you drop it and it doesn't shatter. It's that same, because you know there's a chance it's going to shatter, but it doesn't, and it makes you feel better about it. And you know that when it gets wet, there's a chance that something's going to go wrong. But if that doesn't happen, like you feel like you dodged a bullet rather than, oh, I put it in the dishwasher and now I'm out of luck.
Yeah, iMore guarantee, do not wash this thing in the dishwasher, please, God.
Yeah, no spin cycles.
No dishwasher, no washing machine. Oh gosh, this almost ended up in the washing machine the other day, and I was very unhappy. Thankfully, it did not. I caught it in time, but yeah, no, it's just a nice little update to the hardware. And actually, if you want to talk hardware, the biggest hardware improvement for me is not the 7000 series aluminum. It's not the 2 times Ion X glass, so that's pretty cool. The Touch ID sensor is so fast.
It's almost fast enough to go in like backwards in time.
It's amazing. I just finished doing. I've been running around all day. We're shooting our videos for our iPhone 6s and 6s Plus reviews. And I did a Touch ID test between the 5S, the 6, the 6S, and the 6 Plus. And it is amazing how much faster it is than the 6, but it is mind-blowing just how snappy it is compared to the 5S. Like, I thought the 5S was pretty cool when I got it. And now the 6 feels futuristic. The 6, I just have to, people are complaining about this on Twitter, but I kind of love it that you can press the home button and it immediately goes whoosh. Yeah,
you got to get used to, if you want to see notifications, you've got to use the sleep wake button now. But before, with iPhone 5S, it was touch the sensor, beat, phone starts to unlock. With the 6, it was touch the sensor, beat, phone's unlocked. Now it's touch the sensor, phone unlocked about a half a second before you touch the sensor.
Yeah, it's magic. It really is. And for people who are missing notifications, they're pressing the wrong thing. If you go into settings and go into notifications, you can switch off group by app and switch it to sort by date. And then when you swipe down in Notification Center, you'll get the same view as you would on the lock screen. And that's been very helpful to me.
Yeah, mine was like that. I didn't even notice. Mine was like that a default, and I just looked at it and said, "This makes more sense than anything I've ever seen on Notification Center before."
Lex Friedman, who used to work at Macworld with me, has been asking for this pretty much since Notification Center's debut. That was one of his first like initial nitpicks from it. So as soon as that came out, I was just thinking, oh, Lex is going to be so happy.
We call it the Friedman feature.
Yep, it's
I'm going
true.
to take a quick break. I'm going to tell you about one of our great sponsors, and that is Red Hat. Red Hat is tried, tested, and trusted. So maybe it's not news that supported open source is now widely accepted at the highest levels of enterprise computing, but the extent of adoption is probably broader than most people think. Most of the time, people just think about running Linux in the enterprise, but Linux, it's not supported. So what you're doing, instead of paying money, you're paying time. Red Hat's changing that. Red Hat provides all sorts of solutions for cloud computing, application development, all of it open source, all of it enterprise grade. Red Hat runs in every executive department of the US government, every airline, telco, healthcare company, Fortune and Global 500, the New York Stock Exchange, every commercial. The list literally goes on and on. The only thing that's really surprising is how many people who know a lot about technology don't know about Red Hat. We used to use a lot of Linux in my old enterprise company, and for the mission critical stuff, we did use Red Hat because it was stuff that could not go down, that needed support, that needed a team behind it. We didn't want all the proprietary solutions because we didn't want to get locked into a big company, but we absolutely wanted that support, and Red Hat provided it. So sometimes the most disruptive technology is the stuff that no one notices at first. To find out more about how Red Hat is quietly redefining enterprise technology, visit redhat.com. Build on it, run with it, count on it. Thank you, Red Hat. Whew. All right. Let's save 3D Touch for a minute and talk cameras, Rand, because this is a 3 megapixel. Sorry, not 12 megapixel. Where am I getting 3 from? 12 megapixel iSight camera, up from 8 megapixel, which Apple has been using since I think the iPhone 4S.
5? I want to say 5. It might have been the 4S, but yeah, no, it is their first major rear camera megapixel upgrade in some time. Of course, they've been improving the sensor as things have been going. And in my camera tests, you can actually tell this to a certain extent where the iPhone 6S has some definitive advantages over the 6, but only in certain areas. In bright light, brightly lit photos and things like that, the 6S and the 6 are actually remarkably similar. The 6 has an incredible level of detail, which the 6S, it's not just blowing it up. That was some folks' fear with the 12 megapixels is, oh, Apple's just making the pixels bigger, and so there's less detail.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like a lot of companies, when they did the megapixel race, is they would just chop up the sensor into smaller amounts to make the number bigger, and they wouldn't pull out any light.
Yeah, and it didn't look great. And the thing is, in bright light, this feels a little bit the case. You do get a little bit of blurriness in some of the photos. The photos are bigger, so you don't really notice unless you're zooming in. But it doesn't really make in bright light, it doesn't make a huge difference. Where the 6S excels over the 6 is in low light situations and HDR situations, where those extra megapixels and deep trench isolation come into play, and they really do pull the data out of these lower light situations.
Can you just explain deep trench isolation again? Because people hear it and they think, I don't know, what is it? My moat is going.
Yeah. So deep trench isolation in essence is a way for them to assess the sensor so that you can get more data out of it without necessarily having to chop up the sensor into little bits. And I think you know more about the technical details than I do, Renee.
The only thing I understand, and like I need to get some camera person to explain this to me, is that what happens is when you get the cameras that many megapixels, the colors can bleed together because they're so close together and everything's so small. So the green bleeds into the red, into the blue,
yes.
And they fill up the space in between I forget what they're called now, the pixels, probably, with material so that can't happen, or at least it minimizes that happening.
Yeah, the subpixels, which results in pictures looking crisp and not super blurry, which is very true. As I said, you can see some blurring together in deep depth. It's a problem that the iPhone cameras have had forever. It's an issue with the CMOS sensor, but it is better, a little bit better than the 6 in brightly lit situations, but miles better in low light situations. It is crazy to me just how much smoother and how much just you get more, a little bit more detail. And I noticed this as early as taking I did a video test before I did my camera tests. And when I was doing my video tests, I went to Grand Central Station and I did time lapses, and I didn't expect to see that much difference in the sensor when it came to video, because yes, you're doing 4K, but the 4K, it's the time lapse isn't taking it in 4K.
Mhm.
Time lapse is just your typical 12 megapixel photo in essence. And in the time lapses, the 6S and 6S Plus, the color didn't change markedly, but there was more of it. So
Mm.
like the light in the 6, in the version of the 6 where we did the time lapse, there is just basically white light on the floor from where the windows are streaming in from Grand Central. In the 6S and the 6S Plus, you can actually see the gradations in that light. You can see kind of the purples and the blues and the different hues from those stained glass. And that is really cool. Just like these little tiny details. And the same thing when we took the cameras out for a spin in the evening, when we were walking around New York City, kind of after everything had closed, and we walked by 30 Rock, and we walked by Rock. Where else?
Radio
Rock,
City Music Hall.
yeah, Radio
You
City
could see
Music
the
Hall.
strands of neon. When we took the pictures, you could actually see the individual strands of neon. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and the low light depth of field is also really, really impressive. I was doing a couple of shots where I was trying to get an entire building, which starts being lit up with spotlights, but it tapers off as you go down. And in the iPhone 6, that photo starts to get very blurry and very sort of pixels crunching together about halfway up the building. And the 6S, you get it much, much further. It's just
Yeah.
it's very, very impressive to me. The Apple's always been the king of low light. They improved the low light sensor, and I believe the 4S, and they've just been pounding it out since then, and just really, really making stellar improvements to low light
Well,
photography.
that's their goal, I think. Like they
Mhm.
just want to make a really good camera. Like they don't care
They
about
really
the
do.
megapixels. They just want to make a great camera, and they want to make a camera you can pull out at any time and get a really good, really usable shot. And they don't. It's not the same focus that other companies have that are very camera centric. It's meant for just normal people taking pictures. And you explained to me, because this was new to me, the way that they're doing the noise reduction now for large color areas.
Yeah, yeah.
You said it was like HDR for.
Yeah, exactly. So they're doing I forget the official name for it, but essentially they're taking multiple versions of photos and combining it together, or noise wise, not just for coloration for HDR, but also being like, all right, we're going to overexpose, we're going to underexpose ISO, and then combine all of that together. So that results in a smoother photo when you're in low light situations, and you can see that both in the rear camera and in the front facing camera in low lights too. I posted a photo today on Twitter of me in my basement, which by the way, my basement has windows, but it's very dark in there,
Mhm.
even with light. And I turned a light on, but it very, very dark. And previous to the 6S, taking a photo down there was downright impossible because it was just it was really, really dark. And with the 6S, without Retina flash, it looks great, and then with Retina flash, it looks incredible.
All right, let's talk about that for a second. So the front-facing camera is now 5 megapixels, but it has Retina flash, which takes the Retina screen. They built a special chip just to do this, to make it flash 3 times as bright.
Oh, it's
And
so
it'll
dumb.
try to. It's so marvelous though. It's one of those things where I imagine Tony Stark in his lab going, Jarvis, yeah, sure, why not? Make the whole Retina screen flash.
Yeah,
Here's a
why
chip
not?
for it. It seems great. And then like the little robot with the fire extinguisher is hovering over his head while it's so awesome. And it goes off and it matches the color of the room. And I jokingly call them live flash selfies or live flash selfies, because that's what it feels like. But in a lot of situations, it does make the difference. And even the low light sensors, as good as it is, and the OIS as good as it is, you get markedly better results in situations where you wouldn't get a good selfie at all.
Yeah, I am incredibly impressed with the front-facing camera, and that's one of those things where I think people tend to write off the front-facing camera who don't use it a lot, where it's just like, oh, selfies, haha, that's funny, that's silly, whatever. But I mean, that's actually a huge consideration for a large group of people, where they're like, yeah, we want to take selfies, you know what? And I came around to really, really embracing the idea of a silly self-portrait a while back, when I realized it's not about looking glamorous or being like, yes, I'm so pretty. No, it's about capturing, basically doing an off the cup capture of a crazy moment that you're in. and just being like, hey, I was here.
Yeah,
This is great.
exactly. You explained
And
that to me. I was really reticent to do selfies before, and then you told me to embrace the giddy, like the joyful awesome of it, and it works. It's just fantastic. It's liberating.
exactly. I almost never take a photo that's front facing of me just being like, yes, smiling. So nice.
I'm ready for my
No,
close up now.
yes, exactly. No, it's always a silly face. It's like, oh God, there's a sky bison behind me. Oh no, because it's fun. It's a way of sending an animated GIF without an animated GIF. Of course, now with the iPhone 6s, there's kind of a way of doing both.
Live photos.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Live
basically, you take a
photos.
12 megapixel still in the back or a 5 megapixel still in the front, and you also get a move file, a QuickTime movie file of 1.5 seconds before, 1.5 seconds after, and it'll show you the still, but it'll also animate between them. So you get it's almost like a hybrid of the selfie and the quick video. Or
Yes.
sorry, any picture in the quick video actually.
Yeah. And it's really neat. I'm not 100% in love with live photos because I do have some nitpicks, but I like the concept a lot. I love the idea that it's just taking basically it's a Harry Potter photo.
Yes.
It's taking a little bit of video on either end and it's just having it's the reaction of a photo. It's being able to catch like the silly smiles. With dogs, and I'm sure with kids it's going to be great, but with dogs it's absolutely hilarious. I have one picture of our pit bull Hildy, who has the longest tongue that I can picture. Her tongue is insane. Her tongue could probably swallow some planets. But I just have this picture that's this flash picture of her tongue like looping up around the side of her face. And on its own, that's a pretty funny picture, but it's not a great picture. It's like it's okay. But when you combine it with live selfies, it becomes so much better. I'm trying to find it right now so I can play it for
I had the
you.
same thing. Like I wasn't sure about them either, and then I took some pictures. Like I took some pictures of you at Bryant Park, and I took some pictures when I got home. I took pictures of my godkids and their dog, and just to see like their smiles light up, or their goofy faces change, or like the dog just like turning around, and even just like someone just stumbling or doing something really cool. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm showing this to the live feed right now. So there's the dog. And then you've got this great yawn of his tongue just going all over the place. And he goes all the way around his face. And it's like, that is cool. That's so neat. And I don't like that. That's something I never really would have thought of.
It's a memory enhancer.
Yeah, it does. Or this is a great photo of me and Christina Warren from the Apple event, where we're just being silly and making all of the ridiculous selfie faces that we can possibly make. It's a great way of sort of memorializing specific moments that are happening in time. Now, I do have a couple complaints. Like I wish it was easier to export it. I know that Apple is coming out with an API for developers to integrate, and that's really awesome. And I can't wait to be able to post live selfies to Twitter or Facebook and Instagram, etc. But the problem is, in the meantime, Apple's not given us any kind of export tool aside from a trick on the Mac, which I'll talk about later. But there's no real export tool from the iPhone to send your live selfies to anybody except via messages. And I imagine that Apple's doing that in part to spur on adoption of the API, because if you could just export it to a video, then Instagram would be like, well, whatever. I'm not worrying about that. But it's very frustrating for people who are like, I have this cool new feature. I want to show it to you. You can do this by going to image capture on your Mac, because the live selfie is essentially a 12 megapixel still JPEG and then a 2 to 3 megabyte movie sort of
like
saddled
a 15 frame
alongside
per
it.
second movie.
Yeah, 15 frames per second. 3 seconds long. So so you've got what, 30, 45 frames of an animation. So I wish that it was easier to offload those other than via image capture on your Mac. But the other thing that I really, that I'm really kind of bummed over is I wish that there was a countdown or a warning for the start of a live photo. And I realize that's kind of hard to do because it's taking the stuff before you press the shutter and after you press the shutter. But for people who I was already thinking about the Vine-like possibilities of these 3-second videos where it's like, oh man, how many silly faces can I make? Can I run through the entire Commedia dell'arte spectrum? Can we do some fun things? But the timing is really, really hard to figure out. And that's a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive because when you press the button, that's the still, and then you get 1.5 seconds before it. And a lot of people think when you press the button, that's when it starts, and then you
Yeah.
sort of you're out of time.
Yeah, when you press the button, then you have 1.5 seconds and you're done.
Yeah.
And you have that previous 1.5 seconds. So it's
Or you don't
always,
realize you're done and you start moving before the 1.5 seconds. And they have a little live light, but not everyone sees that every time.
yeah. So I wish that was a little bit easier. I also wish they have the live indicator on photos that are sent via messages and when
Yeah.
you're sharing photos, but the live photos don't, that indicator doesn't show up in your photo browser. And I really wish it would because I like as much fun as trying to tap every single photo in my photos library to remember which ones were live photos and which ones weren't. That's kind of frustrating.
They do animate in the single view, but the single view is
Yeah.
just not efficient.
No, I'm scrolling through multiple ways. Yeah, exactly. So I would really like an animated or not an animated thing, but the little symbol. We've got the little symbol for slow-mo. We've got the little
Yeah.
symbol for time lapse. Why can't we have the little symbol for live photos?
I think we used to have it for HDR as well back in the dark
Yeah,
ages.
yeah.
One thing that was really cool too is the image signal processor that Apple puts in the chipset is vastly improved. That's what lets it do all this cool stuff that we're talking about and gives it the speed to crunch and process this. But as much as you said Touch ID was one of your things, this Apple A9, the more I look at it, the more impressed I am with this. And I keep going back to, if anyone told me 10 years ago Apple was going to be one of the leading chipset companies in the world, I would have thought they were just out of their minds. But increasingly it's like that. And it's one of those things where I look at what companies who are chipset makers like Samsung and Qualcomm are doing, and they're just not keeping up. And Apple is not resting on their laurels either. They're
No.
running faster. So you have in here, it's called Twister, the latest generation that follows Typhoon, Cyclone, and Swift. So if you're keeping track of code names at home, and it's a 1.85 gigahertz, so it's clocked much faster than the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus, but it's also an ARM-V8 chip. It's got all of that in it, but the amount of power it's got, Apple says 70% more for CPU and 90% more for GPU. But I was talking to the guys from Geekbench and I was looking at a lot of the results and I was running some of the GFX bench scores, and it's ridiculous how it's outperforming not only everyone in mobile. Like Nvidia's got some interesting stuff. They haven't
close
shipped a
to
lot
desktop.
of. It is roughly equivalent to the MacBook that Apple just shipped, which is Nvidia's Broadwell Y architecture, and it's not far behind, especially in single core. It's close to the Haswell MacBook Air that you and I bought last year.
Yep. And so let me tell you, this makes me real excited for the iPad Pro in November.
Yeah, because that's getting the A9X.
Yeah, exactly. Even faster with more RAM. Yeah, no, the speed on these has just completely blown me away. Everything feels so snappy. It reminds me a little bit of I think moving to the 5S from the 5. There are a couple jumps in there that just feel like you're holding a completely brand new device. Everything is so fast. Internet browsing feels so snappy. Switching between apps feels seamless. And the one thing that I routinely saw was causing slowdowns on my iPhone 6 was pull down notifications, where if you got, an instant message or an iMessage, you could pull it down and get a quick reply. And on the iPhone 6, that would constantly lag for me. The 6S and 6S Plus, it's instant. Absolutely.
And it's benefiting as well from 2 gigabytes of RAM, which on the iPads lets you do things like split view. There's no split view on the iPhones yet, but it means like when you go back to Safari, your tabs don't reload every time. And yeah, Apple's doing some tricks there in that they're not blanking the page and then redrawing it. They're keeping the page showing and then redrawing it in the background. So it's even perceptibly faster than it would be otherwise. And it's just when you look at the scores again, like Apple's using it's a 2-core dual core CPU that's going up against an octa-core CPU from Samsung, and it's killing them in single thread, and it's equaling them in multi-thread, and that's just really solid ARM IP now. And I'm really curious. Again, like you said, the iPad Pro, but also where this is going next, because they're not slowing down. A lot of companies, Apple doesn't make, well, they have advantages. They don't make money off the chips. They don't have to sell chips to other vendors. They don't have to worry about keeping it on the market for years to recoup their investment. And they also don't make it for multiple platforms. They don't have to worry about supporting DirectX and OpenGL, for example. They can shed all that code and make code specific for their platform. And they're not resting on their laurels. It's not like, yeah, we're fast enough. We'll just keep this for a couple of years and save everyone's effort. They're like, no, run fast.
We're gonna release an X processor alongside a regular processor. It's kind of crazy, honestly, just how quickly that they're moving. But yeah, I love the way that it handles web pages and apps in here. I haven't been able to play many games, but I'm looking forward to testing games. AirPlay is wicked fast now. But the thing actually that I was testing today in Providence, and that I want to talk about, is the cellular snap.
Yeah.
And how much faster just it is to connect to Wi-Fi and networks. Now, obviously, the new iPhones do have more LTE bands, which is really helpful, and they can connect to LTE Advanced, and they have MIMO for
They have band
Wi-Fi.
12 if you're on T-Mobile in the US.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But the thing that really impresses me on the 6S and 6S Plus, if you've ever, if you travel often, or if you use airplane mode previously to save battery life before low power mode existed, which I did often, switching off from airplane mode is often a 4, 5, 6, 7 second ordeal where you're like, all right, phone's waiting, phone's searching.
Reacquiring.
Yeah, and I did multiple tests in the park in Providence today and was getting like 0.2, 0.3 second snap. And it immediately had full bars, full service. Notifications came pouring back in, no problem. And I was just kind of standing there with my jaw a little bit open, being, my iPhone 6 is really, how did you get it this fast? Like it feels, I feel like people have downplayed just how speedy an upgrade it feels. Yeah, and especially, from the iPhone 6, it feels like a speedy upgrade. From the iPhone 5S, it must feel like you're walking on water as opposed to swimming through molasses.
And that's one of those things that you don't really appreciate in single instances, because everything from the Touch ID being faster to app launching faster to not having to wait for tabs to reload to it engaging radios and disengaging them faster and switching faster, and all these things by themselves, it's a few fractions of a second or a few seconds here or there. But when you add that all up, that's what becomes a transformative experience. And after the next break, we'll talk about 3D touch as well, because there's nothing else like that. But I was getting 100 down on LTE previously in my living room, and that's because there's like 20 lanes of LTE, but now it can do 2 times 20 lanes. It can go up to a theoretical 300 megabits per second on LTE, 866 megabits per second. I never got close to pegging any of this stuff previously. I'm not going to get close now. No. But it just means that as much as we can do, it will let us do it.
Yeah, which is awesome. I didn't even talk about iMovie. How awesome it is to edit 4K video in iMovie. I was saying to Renee before the stream started tonight, I can't actually edit the 4K video that my phones are shooting on my iMac, which is only 2 years old. I can't edit it on my iMac because it is so slow, which is a little bit crazy to me. My iMac can't handle 4K video, but I can do multi-stream 4K on my iPhone 6S and 6S Plus, no problem. In fact, the only reason why I needed to move my clip to Final Cut today is that I wanted to turn a regular video into a time lapse. And currently, the iMovie app only lets you do 2x speed export, 2x speed export, 2x speed export. And so I decided, you know what, it'll just be easier if I pump it into Final Cut and then I do 20 times faster. And then I've got myself my time lapse. So if any Apple engineers on the iMovie team are listening, I would love a time lapse slider in iMovie for iOS, but also the ability to cut and paste titles. That would be great. But seriously, the fact that I can edit double stream 4K video on my phone, and I have been flawlessly. I edited my my 6S video tests on the iPhone 6S Plus, and that was great. No problem at all to do that.
No, it is absolutely outstanding. We're doing so much work on our iPhones now. I used to joke about not having to go back to my Mac unless I needed to do serious work, and now I don't even have to go back to my Mac to do a lot of the serious work. It's transformative.
Yeah, it absolutely is. The more that I can do in my pocket or on the go, the better. Now, writing is still a little challenging. I'm waiting for haptic feedback in the keyboard.
Yeah, or external keyboards are fine. It's just for that I'd like a bigger screen.
On an iPhone, yeah, it's not so much. Although I will say we can sort of maybe use this to transition into Touch ID or Touch ID 3D Touch. The being able to move my finger around as a cursor by 3D touching on the keyboard is pretty darn cool.
All right, hold that thought. I'm going to do the last sponsor, and then we're going to jump into that.
You got it.
All right, so this episode is brought to you by lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/imore. That's lynda.com/imore. So lynda.com is for problem solvers, for the curious, people who want to make things happen. Now, for example, we're out shooting a ton of video right now, and Serenity is a professionally trained, highly skilled video editor. I am not. So when I have a problem, whether it's a photography problem, a videography problem, even learning how to edit these podcasts better, I've been going to lynda.com and I just pull up the course, and they have experts, expert photographers, expert videographers, expert editors, and they explain in a way that even somebody like me can understand, simple, basic, step by step. You can watch and learn from top experts. They're passionate about teaching. They have thousands of video courses on demand, and you can learn at your own schedule. It's structured so you can watch an entire course from start to finish, or just consume them in bite-sized pieces. You can just search, find the question that you have, find the answer, watch that, and get on about doing the work. You can browse transcripts. You can take notes. You can download them onto your iOS or Android device. There's tutorials. You can create and save playlists. The list of features just goes on and on. Once again, it's the closest thing that we have in our current technological system to jacking straight into the matrix and learning Kung Fu. It just really is. So your lynda.com membership will give you unlimited access to training on hundreds of topics, all for one flat rate. Whether you're looking to become an industry expert, you're passionate about a hobby, or you just want to learn something new, I want you to visit lynda.com/imore. Sign up for your free 10-day trial. If you work at a company, a club, a business, you can sign up the entire company. It just makes everybody better. That's lynda.com/imore, IMORE. Thanks, Lynda. All right, Serenity, you were telling me about awesome trackpad shenanigans.
Yeah, awesome trackpad shenanigans. So 3D Touch is, of course, the highlight marquee feature on these phones. And one of the big ones is something that came to the iPad, of course, where if you put two fingers down on the keyboard, you get a cursor that you can move around your phone and move up and down in a text field, which is awesome. And if you are doing this on an iPhone 6S or 6S Plus, you don't use two fingers because the keyboard's too small. It just doesn't work. Instead, you use one finger, you 3D touch to pull up the cursor, and then you 3D touch harder on a word to highlight it, and then you can drag from there to select things. Now, the only thing that kind of like breaks my heart a little bit is I'll select a paragraph, and then I'll run out of screen real estate. So I wish that I could be able to let up and then repress and continue selecting. But for a 1.0 version of this feature, it is really darn cool. It is something that I am using constantly.
Yeah, so I mean, it's amazing because you and I have used Wacom tablets for years, and those put an intermediary layer in between the display and the sensors, and so you almost have this gap, and you do see parallax. It's not like it's great, but it's not ideal. And Apple has, with the 3D touch technology and the Force touch technology, they figured out ways of just leaving you with that glass, with the pixels that look like they are actually being painted inside, look like animation cells. It's amazing. So what they're doing is measuring micro variations in the distance of the distant. Oh, I love it when continuity rings all the things. Oops, sorry.
All of the ringing.
All the ringing. So so it measures that. It uses the LED backlighting to measure the difference when you're pressing on it, and then it calculates that, and it can read pressure off that, and it can do things like a single press, a double press, constant dynamic range of pressure. I kind of wish Apple called it multi-press because that sort of jives with multi-touch, but the technology is one thing. The way they're implementing it is just super interesting. Like the home screen shortcuts, it's like a warp tunnel through iOS.
It really is. 3D Touch has a wide variety of uses, as you were saying. The quick actions from the home screen are A1. There was an article that came out today about sort of the death of the home screen, with the idea being that all of our contextual screens in Siri have kind of made it irrelevant to have little jiggling pieces of apps. And I'm like, yes, to a certain extent, this is true. Quick actions makes it a good reason to have app icons, because you can just tap an app icon and get directly to a specific part of that app, which Siri still can't do. You can't say open the, I was gonna say, you can say play Beats One in the music app, but if I was going into Spotify, I couldn't be like, play the blank playlist in Spotify. And if a Spotify app decided to integrate quick actions, which I don't know if it has yet or not, you just lightly 3D touch on an app icon, And if you do it on Spotify, say, you could get like, oh, play this week's Discovery playlist or something like that. And that's so neat. It's such a good way of implementing, not only implementing shortcuts on iOS, which is something that iOS has drastically needed, but implementing shortcuts that are smart and easy for the average user to use, that the average user might actually stumble across.
I just like that they make interactive sense to me. Like I know pressing that icon is going to launch that app, and when I press deeper on that icon, it feels like I'm pressing into the app and I'm getting the functionality that's inside it. And everything is like that. When we talk about pop and sorry, peek and pop later too, it feels like, because yes, Apple has always been adamant that the home screen is not a destination. It's not where you should be living on your iPhone. It's a gateway to get to other apps, which is different than some other platforms approach where they put widgets and all sorts of other things on the screen. Apple doesn't want you to spend time. They want you to get in, get out. But now they're making it so that you not only can switch apps, but you can go right into the actions. It's like you're pressing through. And by the way, for Siri team, please make it so that if I say, Siri, take a selfie, it not only launches the camera, but it switches to the selfie cam. That'd be awesome.
That would be really nice.
But this does that. You press camera and you just
does.
You keep pressing it, and yeah, it's right there. The selfie cam, the slow-mo cam, all those things. And it's, once again, it's like keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are not really faster than mouse actions, but because of the way our brains perceive sequential actions, they're cognitively faster. We perceive them as being faster, so they have to be. And this is the same. It's not really faster to press the camera icon, then press the selfie camera, but because of our brains are built, we're pressing and then moving, it counts it as far fewer actions, and it makes it seem faster. And that's all what the experience is about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really kind of magical. The multitasking switcher also has a 3D touch gesture where if you tap on the left side and 3D touch on the left, I really want to say 3D press. If 3D touch on the left side of the iPhone, you'll be able to pull up the multitasking switcher, which is really cool. You can press a little bit to just swipe over and swipe one app, or you can press deep to get through your entire multitasking screen. Now, because of the new cards-based interface and because of this gesture, I now have instinctively tried to do that on the right side of my screen when I'm trying to switch back.
Yep.
And that is messing with my spatial awareness a little bit, doing the like whoop, and then, oh wait, no, I have to go back to the left, not to the right.
Yeah, because the universal gestures that they introduced in iOS 7 do go in both directions. But it feels so fast, like that combined with the back button in iOS 7. I don't know how, I literally don't know how I live without it. I was just tapping my way through app hierarchies like an animal, and now I'm just going right to where I want to go.
It's so fast. And combining that with fast Siri, which I guess we could talk about. Have we finished 3D touch? Because
one thing I wanted, like the peek and poke to me are
peek and pop.
Peek and pop. Sorry. So you got hint.
Our two children's characters.
Sorry. You've got hint, you've got peek, and you've got pop. And basically what it lets you do is bring up view controllers where you already are. So if Serenity says you want a podcast at 5:30, I can just tap that 5:30. It brings up my calendar. I can see that I'm free and say, yes, I don't have to leave apps. I'm not switching apps, switching back so fast. Do you want to meet here? I press the button. I know where that is. Sure, I'll go there. And you can do it inside an app. So you can see what screen you're going to go to next, like if you're quickly looking for an email. But you can also do it in between apps. So I can pull in a view from Safari or Mail, or Maps or anything, and I don't have to switch it. But if I do, I just press harder and boom, it literally feels like, when Han is saying punch it, Chewie, and you press the thing and the stars
hyperspace, yeah,
and then you're there, and you're like, it's so great.
I love it. I really like the contextual menus hidden underneath peek, by the way. For people who haven't discovered this, if you have a 6S, press a little bit to get peek and then swipe up, and you'll get actually a series of contextual buttons that change depending on the app. So if you press, if you peek on a calendar on like 5 p.m. and then you swipe up, you can actually get a make an event for 5 p.m. where you're immediately brought up into the event screen, easy as pie, like that, which is so good. So good.
It is. After you start using it, you never, like, you go back to a 6 and you just miss it. And I'm not saying this to make people with the 6s feel bad. They're still great devices, but it's one of those things, like I had a resistive device. I had Palms before I had the iPhone, and they had touch screens, but they weren't capacitive. And you don't appreciate the difference till you have the new thing. And this new thing, it really does make multi-touch multi-dimensional. And it's not perfect yet. There are some different choices that could be made for what the options are and how they're acted. But I think this technology has legs, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, the one thing that I would like to see come into later versions of iOS currently when you press a quick action from the home screen, when you press on an app icon that doesn't have 3D touch enabled, the icon jiggles a little bit and you get a little
Yeah.
little double vibration. I really wish the device would do that across the board if you tried to 3D touch on something that
Yes.
wasn't 3D touchable. Because I find myself like, especially the new version of Tweetbot just came out and it's fabulous. And, thumbs up to the folks at Tapbots. They've been working really hard, but it's not quite 3D touch enabled yet. And so I've been trying to 3D touch on tweets and not like, oh, maybe I'm just not pressing hard enough. It's a brand new version. Surely it has 3D touch. No, I'm not doing that to pull on Paul Jordan, because really it's a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful app. I can't wait until you guys add 3D touch because it's so fun.
Well, no, absolutely. And one thing that I will caution people is that there's two kinds of quick actions. There's static and dynamic, and static load immediately as soon as you download the app. But the dynamic ones require you to launch the app in order to load, because those things are like your last message contacts, the videos you haven't watched yet. And it has no idea what those are until the app is launched once. So if you press an app, you don't see anything. Try launching it at least once, and then you'll see.
So I'm showing the where it just kind of it shakes out for a second.
So great.
And my other 3D touch niggle actually also happens to be on the home screen, which is the difference between a long press and a peek or a quick action on the home screen is very difficult in terms of entering edit mode so that you can move your app icons around. I really wish that either in the contextual gestures in the quick actions, there was a thing that just said edit, or that you made one level up where you had a little tiny haptic vibration for edit. Because what happens now is I end up pressing too much into it before I get in there. Yeah. And I end up getting into peak. What I think for people who are having trouble doing this, I suggest very lightly resting your finger on the display.
So friendly Paul Kafasis had a great tip for this. He just said, press as hard as you want on a folder, because folders have no quick actions.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. That's great.
Paul's a rock star.
Until folders get quick actions.
For
in
now,
which case we're all screwed.
Yeah,
but for now, absolutely. Paul Kafasis, very nice tip.
Yeah, no, I like, and also like the long press, there is a collision there because 3D touch is new. So for example, I was just trying to get a hint off of a link in one of my emails, and I would press it, it would start to come up, but then I'd let go because I'm still not used to it, and it would go to the long press and ask me to save it. Then I couldn't open the link. I did dismiss it, and it happened like 3 or 4 times in a row because those gestures are colliding, and you can't get rid of them yet because their features aren't exactly duplicated, and you've got to support it, for legacy devices.
Absolutely.
So it's just one of those transition periods where we have to figure our way out of it.
I kind of wish that long press was automatically mapped to the peak in 3D touch, where it still brings up the contextual menu, but it does do the double vibrate. Yeah. Where it's just like, here's your contextual menu, and then once you actually get into once the apps are configured for 3D touch, then you actually get the peak, the proper design. But that's just my nitpicks.
And what I'm waiting for, and I'm sure you're waiting for it too, is when we start seeing the dynamics, pressure sensitivity, and other art apps and games.
Yes. And I saw a link today, of course, which I think you had mentioned earlier, that you can do pressure sensitivity. Pressure sensitivity can be recognized on the web as well. Yep. So people can actually develop web applications that take advantage of 3D touch, which I think is so cool.
Anything that's a link or a data detector generated link, you can just enable it in the standard view, and it will show you. And Apple is not only supporting it in Safari View Controller, but in the legacy WK web view and even UI web view, which companies like Google still use for Chrome. So it's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm really psyched for that. But yeah, the pressure sensitivity, oh man, drawing with notes is, I never thought that I would be like, yes, I want to draw in the Notes app. Right. Like, I love paper. And I'm still, as I was saying at the top of the show, still some niggles about the Notes app. I really don't like that there's no color picker, but the pressure feels so nice and so smooth. And I got a chance to play with a capacitive non-pressure sensitive stylus. The Jot Dash, which is Adonit's newest stylus. And drawing on that, of course, the pressure works because your 3D touch is based on pressure input, not like some fancy mechanics talking to your finger. So you're able to sketch and draw with a pen, which is and get native pressure, not simulated pressure, native pressure, which is so So nice. And the Notes app isn't perfect. The Notes app definitely has, like, the lines are kind of weird. It works a
Yeah.
little bit like Adobe Ideas, where it kind of tries to predict where you're going. So if you draw really slowly, the line tries to kind of auto curve and correct for you. But it's such a good start. I can't wait to see what Paper does with it. I'm so psyched.
It's great. So anything else before we wrap up, Brian? Any other parts you want to talk about?
Siri, really quickly.
Oh yeah, Siri.
Yeah, Siri. So Siri has gotten much faster. Siri has now become responsive to only you. We did a really great test in the park today where I configured my device for Ahoy telephone, and I would say, like, "Hey Siri, what's the weather?" And my device would pop up and say, "Oh, this is fine." And then I'd hand it to Rick, who was helping me shoot, and he'd be like, "Hey Siri, what's the weather?" And Siri would do nothing.
Yeah.
Siri would just mock him and be stony. And then like, "Hey Siri, do you like Rick at all?" And Siri would go, "I really can't say."
So yeah, because they put the M9 processor. It used to be a coprocessor that was
Mhm.
independent from the main A8 architecture, the A7
Well, the
architecture.
M9 and the coprocessor was also originally just for activity data, and
Yeah.
now they've tied it to Hey Siri as well, which
So
is
it's integrated, and that means that it's even more power efficient. So they can leave the microphone on, because the microphone being left on is a power drain. And other companies have done coprocessors, but they're also doing Voice ID, which sort of tries to make sure that it's you saying something. And that's like, even if you and your boyfriend had your phones next to each other and you yelled out Ahoy telephone, you wouldn't want them both to go off. So
no.
and now we're gonna have Apple TVs with Siri and iPads. I mean, it's not gonna get any easier. So
Yeah, you
having
have
the Voice
you have
ID important.
watches with Siri. There's a lot of Siri going on here.
A
So
whole lot of Siri going on.
a whole lot of Siri. Yeah, so I'm really happy with that. Siri is blazing fast. Thank you, A9 processor.
Yeah.
Blazing fast. There's no initial beep beep because it's listening the second you put your thumb down on the home button, unless you're going through Bluetooth speakers, in which case you will get that sort of
Yeah,
delayed.
dictation will still give you an audio sound if you
Mhm.
but for Siri, and some people have not really like they've noticed that as a surprise, but it's sort of like how the watch works, where you get taptics now instead of the audio, and it's much more covert. Like you don't have to go, "Oh, is that you?"
I really like this, honestly. I like being able to very quietly go into my phone, like, "Make a reservation for 7 p.m. today." Because I do that on my watch a lot. But unfortunately, the watch is limited to certain things. The watch can't make me an open table reservation, but the phone can. And I can do that very, very quietly while we're walking back to the car. And it doesn't seem weird or awkward because I'm not being like, "Hey Siri, make me a," it's good. It's good.
Yeah, and just like if you're wondering like why, like we're incredibly enthusiastic about the iPhone, and it's because it really does deserve it. Like you'll never hear me go on and on about Apple mice. I'm really not a fan of Apple mice. I've never been a fan of. I don't think they've ever made a good mouse. There's certain things they do.
Their only good mouse right here.
That's exactly what
The magic trackpad is their only good mouse.
exactly what I'm using it for the same reason.
Yeah. No, I mean there are definite, like, I have some niggles about the 6S and the 6S Plus, but overall I am very, very happy with these devices. I think these are incredibly good, not only incredibly good successors to Apple's previous lines of iPhones, but they're really, really good computers on their own. They have a lot to offer users, and even with their bugs and their niggles, like 3D Touch is amazing. 3D Touch is going to change the way that people use devices, especially when you consider that it's accessibility enabled, which is just, it's a level beyond. I mean, Apple really does put the thought into some of this stuff. And it's not to say also that, like, by giving these phones a glowing review, we're like, all Android phones are terrible. Because you know what? I'm sure that there are Android phones just as well deserving of praise as we're giving the 6S and the 6S Plus. It just so happens like the 6S and the 6S Plus for me fit better into my workflow than an Android device. For someone else, it may be different. But having used these phones and having a primarily Apple ecosystem in my home, I think they're top tier. I wouldn't trade them for the world.
There, and I like Apple's, and again, it's a philosophical thing. There are some people who look at an iPhone and they think, "Oh, it's locked down. I can't customize it." There are wonderful new Nexus, a new Nexus 6P. That's terrific. It looks great in every way, and you'll love it. But if you're someone who really, again, likes the way that Apple does things, that it's not about how many megapixels the camera is. It's about how great they can make the camera, and they have their own focus, their own way of doing something. It's like preferring one sort of cocktail to another sort of cocktail, or one airline to another airline.
Absolutely.
It's just a personal thing. And if you do like these things, I would say if you have correct me if I'm wrong here. And if you have like an iPhone 4S, iPhone 5, iPhone 5S, I think it's tremendous upgrade.
Biggest upgrade of your life.
Yeah, it's
Seriously, it's like upgrading from a 1990s Camry to like a brand new Prius or a Tesla. It feels like such a giant leap forward. And there's just so many things. And I recommend if you're making that big of a jump, check out iMore, check out Apple support pages, because there's a lot of hidden functionality if you're jumping between, say, iOS 7 and iOS 9. 3D touch is a huge thing unto itself. It helps to know what you can do and what you can't.
Yeah, it's like a 911. It's like the Bay Area Camry. I mean, it's just wonderful.
It's amazing. Yeah. So if you have an older phone, absolutely upgrade it. 100%, 110%.
If you're on Android and and you're happy, that's great. But if you do like what Apple's doing with security, if you like what they're doing with privacy, if you like what they're doing with ease of use, if you like what they're doing with their ecosystem, it's absolutely worthwhile. They've made a new Move app, which lets you easily bring everything over from Android to iOS and have a great experience. I think the most challenging thing, though, is, and I'm so tired of people talking about TikTok cycles and iterative updates, because that we got over that in 2011. I kind of feel like Intel is going, it's like, you mad, Intel, because everyone's using Apple for TikTok now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I think that you have to really want one of the features. You have to really want 3D touch or really want the new camera in order to justify the upgrade. And it is easier because there are the new yearly upgrade plans, but I still think, they're still competitive products.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you have an iPhone 6 and you're still stuck under contract, wait until the 7. It's not so big an upgrade where it's like, yes, here's $900, take all my money. But if you're an artist, if you're someone who likes sketching, if your contract is just about up and you can pop on the iPhone upgrade plan, or if you like to upgrade every year, or if you really care about low light or 4K, this phone is incredible. It really is. And it was enough that were I not in technology and not a technology reporter, I would be upgrading from my 6 to my 6S, because I feel like 3D touch is going to make a big enough impact in my life. The pressure is going to make an impact. The pressure sensitivity is going to make a big enough impact in my life. And the low light in the camera is going to, basically change how I take evening photographs, which is really cool. I ended up doing, on my Instagram during the eclipse earlier this week. It's been a long week.
It's a blur. I think it was earlier this week.
Earlier this week during the eclipse, I ended up taking a couple of different eclipse photos. This is the closest I've ever been able to take a picture of the moon that wasn't blurry, which an iPhone camera has never been able to do.
The rose gold moon.
Yeah, the rose gold moon. But I also managed to take a live flash selfie with the moon, and it properly exposed us. And the moon was a little overexposed, but you could still see the fact that it was slowly being eclipsed. And I'm like, this is awesome. I would have never been able to take a selfie during an eclipse with an older camera. Oh yeah. And if you're a front facing camera person, like that, this is an upgrade that you will want.
Yeah. It's basically the camera that some of the most nitpicky people in the world are going to be using for a year. So they take great pains to make it a good experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure, yeah, there's still things that they can fix and they can improve upon, but you know what? Good start, Apple.
Yep.
I'm happy.
2 thumbs up.
Yep.
All right, Ren. So if people want to see all the camera tests you're doing, if they want to read more of your awesome how-to articles, where can they go?
They can go to imore.com. They can also find me at Settern, Settern, on Twitter and Instagram, where I'm posting some of those camera tests right now. And occasionally I do a little radio theater thing on The Incomparable that just started up. Renee Ritchie, I think you were a guest on the latest Incomparable.
Georgia Dow, me, and Guy English all invaded The Incomparable Radio Theater.
An influx of Canadians.
It was pure Canucky fun.
Yeah, and I do a very, very risque guest spot in there, which was very fun and very, very silly.
Well, you're legitimately part Canadian.
I am legitimately Canadian. I have a Canadian passport. I have a Canadian not a birth certificate. I have a Canadian identity card. So I technically I'm half Canadian. So I was by rights belonged in that Canadian episode. My cameo is pretty terrible.
No, never. It's a continual delight. And Serenity has put up so much. We'll talk about LCAP in the next show, but she's written all the help articles. So just make sure you check those out. They'll get you from where you are to where you need to be, and they'll do it with elegance and style.
Little by little.
step by step. I'm not going to start singing New Kids on the Block.
Yeah. Oh, and next week I will have an Apple Music review 3 months later.
Yeah.
I meant to have it up on Wednesday when the 3-month trial ended, but unfortunately, Apple released a version of OS 10 that week, and then Apple released iPhones the previous. So we're going to stagger it out a little bit. So if you want to know about Apple Music, if you're kind of on the fence, that my review will be coming on Monday.
Awesome. Can't wait. You can find me at Renee Ritchie. You can find all of us at iMore. We have so many reviews up on the site right now. Yeah, you can go there and check it out. We still have iOS 9. We have watchOS 2. You can get both of those bundled in an iBook. We'll make sure the link is in the show notes. We have the iPad Mini 4. We have a preliminary review of the iPhone 6S. We have El Capitan. Just so many reviews. So make sure you check those out. If you haven't already, you can find this podcast in iTunes. Please leave a review. Please leave a rating. It helps more people find the show and encourages Apple to feature it. And that's just awesome for everybody. If you missed the video version, you can find it at youtube.com/iMoreVideo. I want to once again thank lynda.com for sponsoring the show. Lynda.com is for problem solvers, for the curious people who want to make things happen. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/iMore. That's lynda.com/iMore, IMORE. Whew. All right, Serenity, we survived iPhone 6S podcast.
Somehow. Now on to the next one.
All right.
Maybe some sleep sometime, maybe. Yeah, we can sleep when we're dead.
Absolutely. Well, we can sleep in live photos.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thanks, man. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next time.
Good night, everybody.